Could humanity really survive an invasive species not from Earth? It's really hard to say exactly how the cards would actually fall on that. On the one hand, we have so completely dominated this world that it may be that other animals from other planets would experience the same thing. However, on the other hand, it's entirely possible that our own efforts may be in vain, as that invasive animal could outcompete or even out-survive us, even going as far as to change the environment, making it hostile to all Earth-based life. Which, stick around for that because I have a theory on what is happening. But this brings us around to today's topic. In the events of monsters, that is exactly what's taking place. As NASA had discovered life within our own solar system, they then sent out a probe to retrieve the samples and bring them back to Earth. With the mission being deemed a success, the probe would then return, where upon re-entry it would break apart over Mexico, seeding a large swath of land with these creatures. So what are these creatures? How does their internal biochemistry work, and where may they have come from? Well, let's discuss that in today's episode. But before moving on, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you do enjoy this type of content, then please leave a like, because that's awesome of you. Because without you guys, none of this would even be possible, so I do appreciate y'all's support. Check out Roanoke Tales for like cryptids and true crime stuff. It's basically just an amalgamation of what I find interesting. And also, check out the Discord for movies where we watch those and then they end up here. Links for all of that in the description. We kick off our story with this being 6 years ago. NASA had found the possibility of alien life within our solar system. Oh, deja vu. Although, sounds pretty sick, right? I assure you, it's completely healthy and non-sick at all. When the space probes come back with the samples, they broke up during re-entry over Mexico. Life began to appear shortly after that, and half the country would be quarantined, as the military is now struggling to contain these creatures in the infected zone. Why would a creature designate an area as an infected zone? Well, we will get to that, because it isn't good. Over the radio, soldiers say they have located one male and one female as the soldiers drive through with one singing Flight of the Valkyrie. You know, like da 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 da. Anyways, so as they continue fighting these creatures that are above them, they start getting picked off one by one. Realizing that they're losing the fight, and this one seems to be pretty common, though I guess this is their first encounter. Or, hold up, could this be a loop? Anyways, more on that later. Anyhow, so one of them yells for help as another then calls in the airstrike. Opening up on it, we get the title card, Monsters. The next day, I reckon, which is actually not the next day because I just confirmed something with myself, there are firefighters picking through the rubble in another area down in Mexico as tanks are destroyed along with the creature. One guy then asks where they took the injured as he grabs a passenger seat on a bike and then goes to the hospital. He's looking for a woman, ain't we all, named Samantha, as everyone there is injured because it's probably, it's a hospital, so it kind of makes sense the injured are there. Heading to a back room, he then meets her, saying he works for her dad's company and wanted to make sure that she was okay. Apart from her hand, she's pretty much good to go. Back on the phone, he's told to get the boss's daughter out of there and bring her to the coast. Getting real Leon Kennedy vibes here. Next, you're gonna be telling me that she says she has 2 tickets to a movie and he's gonna say, good, that means you can watch it twice. Which arguably, look, we all know Ashley was barking up Leon's tree super hard. That man didn't need to have charisma, or as the younglings say, riz. That's why he could literally dodge every single advance, and he still could have gotten it any day of the week. And that's how you're supposed to flirt. Probably because, I don't know, it works. But it can also drive away potential prospects, so you need to be aware of that. Anyways, so as they drive along, military equipment is being moved as Sam asks if the driver feels safe living there. He says at this point, it just sort of happens every year. So the answer to your question, Sam, is no. No, they do not feel safe, but what's the alternative? Sam then calls back to her dad and says that she's fine, and he asks if she's called John yet, her fiance, the guy that you are committing to casually, I reckon. But she hasn't. What a great fiance. Handing the phone over to Leon here, the dad then asks for his name, and he says Andrew, but really it's Leon. We all know this. I've already established it as certifiable lore. And the guy says that's his daughter, the president's daughter, and makes him promise that he will get her back home safe and parasite-free. Given the water and alien situation down there, can't guarantee it's gonna be parasite-free, but I can guarantee you something will return that's in the shape of your daughter. Who knows? She may even still speak English. Running to the train, they then hop on board as she asks if he's photographing these things. They discuss what both of them are actually doing down there, and he asks if she actually works. I have no idea what company her father owns, but that is an actual real question. Some people choose not to work if they have rich parents. It's par for the course. If I ever become that rich, I'm going to bury my money somewhere, and then my offspring will just be given a crude map when I die to hopefully find it. And if they don't, well, that's their problem. So her arm is bothering her as she says it's pretty much hot in that thing. So taking pictures of the countryside and derailed trains, that can't be good. In the distance, a fight is taking place with something else. Also, you think after 6 years we would have gotten really good at putting these things down, which also, I mean, after we see them, I really don't understand how we're having issues taking them out. Like, it really doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult. Also, it seems to me, if you aim at the base of the nerve stem, you can put them down 87% quicker sort of deal. Disable the hand, and the hand cannot fight back. Or at least develop better countermeasures than what we seemingly have at our disposal. So Sam then heads back to Leon as she says they can't go any further by train, and it is said that they had to head back. She asks if they should just stay on the train, which of course not. That would be the smart thing to do. Leon then says that they are miles away from the zone, as in they jump off in the middle of the night in a strange area, which the state of this place is a complete unknown to them, which is a brilliant idea, brother. So you were trying to get this back gal for some kind of reward, I'm assuming, right? This is not the way to do it. So knocking on a random door in the middle of the night in an area that could be held by warlords for all they know, Sam then says they are a little lost, which is fantastic work. Cinema, some would say. Tell the unknown person that not only do you not know the area well, but you also are completely untethered from anyone else around you knowing where you're at. Luckily, against all odds, an alien didn't answer the door, as a woman then shows them where they are. They are 100 kilometers from the coast, which, ugh. Heathen units. Let me correct this back to the Lord's units. They are 62.13 miles from the coast, or roughly about 10,238.65 M1 Abram tanks. Nobody travels at night because the creatures apparently move at night, so they will need to go during the day. The military then closes the coast in about 2 days due to the migration patterns of these creatures. So, if they don't get out of there by then they will be stuck there for 6 months. Or, hear me out, if this father is truly as powerful and rich as everyone else is claiming, why not call back to Pops, which they can easily do, and just have a private helicopter come and get them? Or like a mercenary team to just pull her out. Or like a Leon Kennedy for real instead of a photographer. There are so many options here to extract loved ones from another country when you have that much money. Father Dearest here seems to just be going with the cheapest option. I'm guessing he has other daughters. So eating food and watching cartoons about the creatures, apparently gas masks are necessary, which is sort of a loosey-goosey statement because the entire time I watched this, I saw no real need for a gas mask from what I can tell. And the woman then asks Leon if he's married to Sam, as he says, no, I'm single. Like, no, for real, I have no wife. Like, he really drives that point home. It's kind of hilarious. So later that night, as he watches the footage of the outbreak going on, as the President of the United States says he will not tolerate activity near the border, and along with that, migration patterns of these creatures appear to change. This cannot be something good. The next morning, everyone is just sort of vibing out as Leon takes pictures of the younglings in gas masks. Sam is then also handed supplies as Leon asks if Sam is married, and she says, no, I'm engaged. And this actually becomes a reverse Leon sort of situation here soon. Attempting to hike out, a truck then picks them up as they head to the infected zone. Having a conversation in the back of the truck somehow, which no shot, that's the most unbelievable part. You aren't quietly talking back there like, oh hey, good to see you. How are you? How are the aliens treating you? No, you're yelling. You're not whispering. Anyway, so then they stop at a village to pick up some barrels as Leon then walks around asking about the attack that took place, which left military equipment burnt out all over. Boarding a bus, they then head towards the harbor, a mere 3.1 miles away, or 500 kilometers away, or 510 Abram tanks away from the infected zone. Leon keeps talking about how he's photographing? That's the word. Tragedy for money. No one wants to see happy people, they want to see chaos, which, there's actually a real reason for that. Do not pay attention to that voice crack, it's early in the morning. So, the idea that people tend to remember the bad over the good, right? It's a very real mental state. So what is the saying? 10 compliments are needed to overcome 1 insult? Well, it's true because it's a survival mechanism. If you ever wondered like why people become absolutely addicted to like the 24-hour doom and gloom news cycle, it's quite literally because if you want to survive, you need to remember the bad. Bad things can harm you and even outright take you out. By remembering these things and feeling them more strongly, you are more likely to survive in the future. At least that's how it used to be. This would be like your friend Uga going near a cave entrance on a dare and then getting pulled in by a short-faced bear. Arguably, pretty bad, right? Well, you're gonna remember now to stay away from that cave. However, Uga giving you a salmon years earlier, while a good memory and arguably did help your survival, is something that can't be continuously depended upon. So the memory is appreciated, but it's not attributed to survival, so as a result, it's not held onto as strongly. And this is why you stay up at night, kind of remembering the cringy things that you did or things that were said. Although remember, if you think something that you did in the past was cringy, then that just means you've grown as a person, so it's alright to acknowledge it and then just sort of let it go. Anyways, so negative responses are hardwired into our very biology, as in the past this helped us survive. Nowadays, without natural predators constantly stalking us and our well-fortified homes in cities, towns, whatever, not to mention our countermeasures that can pretty much drop any animal if it's the right caliber, negative experiences are more of the social variety. Typically, the 24-hour news would have you believe that there's a literal war in your backyard all the time. While that's true in some parts of the planet, the reality is most people are just vibing out, and most people just want to be your friend. But it's important to acknowledge the human brain and its propensity to steer towards the negative. So because of this, Leon over here has to focus on the negative aspect of this outbreak, which, I mean, arguably there's a lot of negative aspects of this outbreak, because that's what pays the bills. It's like on YouTube when you post a positive video, people don't really care. However, if you make a video calling out the fart coin scam or some stupid thing like that, all of a sudden you got a video that's got millions of views. And that's the name of the game, baby. Moving on. So, getting dangerously cheesy next to the infected zone, they then look out and spot the fence all around them as they go to get their ferry tickets. Finding it closed, probably not ideal. They're there to take the ferry directly to the US through the Gulf of Mexico, but they cannot get on it today, but they can get on it tomorrow at 7 a.m. The price is $5,000. Alright, well, evidently this is the only way to go, and I mean, you can't just walk to the US apparently, as that goes directly through the infected zone, which I feel like that might be a sign for other people, not uninfectable people such as themselves. The US has also built a massive wall to prevent these creatures from getting into the United States and on the soil that we have, so the ferry route goes out around all of this to circumnavigate the issue. Leon keeps saying that she has a passport, attempting to haggle. He has no bargaining power because he doesn't have anything that this dude wants, apart from $5,000. So as a result, the guy just kind of sits back stonewalling them because they're stuck at $5,000, which, nice shakedown you got there, bro. Deciding that this is the only way, they then pay the man $5 grand. Don't worry, Pop should take care of it, right? Realizing that they are out that chunk of money, they then discuss having the 5 tequila shots, don't miss the boat the next morning. They then drop off Sam at her place as the creatures are still on the move. He drinks some water and immediately gets giardia because of this, and Leon then makes a pass at Sam as he keeps watching the report on the news about the town and how it won't be hit for another 2 days. Sam then gets up and goes to shower as Leon keeps watching the news. News of the probe comes on and Leon then calls back to his youngling to wish him a happy birthday. Sam then comes out asking who that was, and he's like, oh, it's reception. They say my room is ready. Nice lie there, brother. Like, dude gives me a weird vibe in general, but it's important to remember he's fully aware that she has a fiance. Disloyalty disgusts me. Laying back, she then tells him to leave as he gets up and goes to his room. Later that night, what do you do before a monster attack? Drink, of course. So they head out to go gallivant, and as they do this, it's pretty much all party central for the most part, and then suddenly the vibe immediately shifts as they enter one of the roads where memorials are set up for those who were lost. Lots of younglings got taken out, it seems, but from human activity trying to stop the creatures, so it's like SpongeBob and Patrick saying, yay, we saved the city, and in the background everything's just burning. So Leon then asks how Sam is feeling as she says okay as helicopters keep flying overhead. Heading to another bar, they drink some more as Leon asks what she's going to do tomorrow. She's like, oh, I'm gonna go home and then get married, but they haven't really set a date, so you're not getting married tomorrow? Also, I'm just gonna keep it real with you. Hopefully you're enjoying this episode, but for some reason they sparingly use the monsters until the very end, but it is coming up, so don't you worry your pretty striped head. So as a truck passes saying stop the concussive force detonating, everyone is not jazzed about what's going down tomorrow. Leon then talks about dolphins and how they have belly buttons as he insults her by saying, oh, you must be a marine biologist. Why would you say that? I mean, everyone knows marine biologists' best friends are just anglerfishes. Abomination. Anyhow, brother is trying super hard to get inside for the night, get inside the apartment for the night, or the hotel room, you know what I'm saying. And people are moving all around him, which I thought this was going to be an issue, like there was going to be a problem, but nothing happens. Anyways, not giving up, he keeps trying to get in, but she's just not interested. Dude, she's got a fiance. My man here is trying to work in a side dude situation, which is cringe, which I have 2 things to say about that. If you're this guy, change. And if you're that woman that allows this, change. So then he heads out going to drink more tequila as Sam then turns on a documentary about how sea creatures can smell chemicals in the ocean from over 100 miles away. Essentially, I believe this is a reference to how these creatures in this movie are kind of finding each other. and why they may migrate to the ocean even though they're on land. They very much so appear to be an aquatic species, but they still are able to move on the land itself. Leon then goes and gets hammered as Sam calls John, who doesn't answer. Who knows? Maybe he's got a side chick situation. You would probably deserve that from what we're gonna find out. So the next morning, 7 a.m. comes fast when you've been drinking tequila all night. As Leon wakes up hearing a boat horn, there appears to be a random woman in his bed. That's a great way to catch something, brother. So Sam is ready to go as she heads to his room to wake him up. She's interested, so she wants to ask him if he wants to get a cup of coffee before she leaves. But looking in, she sees a random woman's foot, so she's like, no, it's okay, and then she bolts out of there. Putting on just boxers, dude goes all the way out the dock to chase her down. Leon then asks what is she doing as he says, oh, so that's it. Yeah, man. That's it. You met her like 2 days ago. She's kind of already got someone. Not gonna lie, this dude kind of sucks. So he tells her to get on the boat, which I mean she was gonna do anyways, but she's like, you have my passport. So he runs back to his room as the girl was in there has just completely robbed him, but for some reason she didn't take his camera. You know, the thing that was actually worth money. Classic. Looks like you better put on your walking shoes and your gas mask because you've got an all expenses paid trip to the infected zone. Going back to the ferry, despite having paid $5,000 the day earlier, the guy basically tells him the army is here, so there's nothing he can do. The last boat has already left. Sam then says, well, we can just walk, as this guy's like, well, it's gonna be more expensive because I'll have to hire people, and it's a difficult, dangerous journey, but it'll be about $10,000, and this time Sam is like, oh, that's fine. The guy then says he will need to see how they can even pay, as he doesn't know them. They keep bargaining, but this dude is once again a brick wall. She then hands him her wedding ring that is worth over $20,000. I'm sorry, what? Look, I get it's diamonds, but no shot that's worth $20,000. I have purchased one of these rings prior in my life. It literally looked like this, and it was nowhere near 20 grand. There aren't enough diamonds on that thing. So Leon then says he wants 2 tickets for that, as the guy considers it and agrees despite having no idea if this could just be cubic zirconia, and which would be pretty hilarious. So heading back to the infected zone, they hop in a pretty nice Mitsubishi truck. I believe that's an L200K70, which it's difficult to tell the year basically, but these boys range from 1995 to 2005 to compete directly with the first gen Tacoma, which arguably was built better, but that doesn't matter because there were also some other cool trucks like this one back in the day. On the lower end, they had a 2.0-liter engine that produced around 122 horsepower, and on the upper end, they had a double cab with a 3.0-liter which produced around 181 horsepower. Overall, they were a mix of rugged and leisure trucks that could be retrofitted, you see, with life-saving builds, considering they were 4x4s, which would have like a roll bar and probably some armoring. Overall, pretty nice looking truck, but it did struggle with overheating. Also, just barely to the side, you can see a 2005 Toyota Helix, or Hilux, really depends on what you want to call it. The older variants of these I do love, but the 2005, I mean, had more creature comforts and was still just as reliable. Also, I'd like to point out the 3.4-liter V6 engine of the first gen Tacomas had 190 horsepower, which is what I have. Not to dunk on Mitsubishi, but it just is what it is. You know, heavy as the crown on Toyota. Moving on, Leon here is looking pretty hungover. I get it. Reaching the checkpoint and decontamination area, the officials are bribed by being told that they are there to study creatures. Yes, they absolutely look like they're scientists ready to study an invasive form of fungal life. Very good. So they're let through as Leon then keeps acting like he's not supposed to be there, which look, he's looking around spastically, watching over his shoulder, right? Not sus at all. So the first rule of being in an area that you aren't supposed to be is acting like you're supposed to be in that area. Fluid, non-distracting movements, head up, looking forward like you have a purpose to be there. Most people will leave you alone. Of course, if you're asked for like credentials or anything, you're screwed. So, driving goated Mitsubishi trucks around, they begin moving through to the infected zone. There are people in there, as in they go to pay one guy, but he says it's too dangerous this late in the season. They then come to an agreement and he says, fine, I'll take them. He tells them to hurry and board the boat as they head out moving up the river. And I say moving up the river because they're heading north. Many rivers flow north, just know that, but I always feel like rivers flow south. So boating through lots of destroyed buildings and towns that have been reclaimed by nature. Leon then keeps photographing all of this as there are even ships up in the trees as evidently they were thrown there. Sleeping on Sam's foot. Yeah, it's pretty gross. Like, how did that even, like, could not be me. Like, yeah, I know there's this meme about this channel that, you know, starting with the feet has turned it into a foot channel. I'm trying to beat the feet allegations. Feet are gross to me. Such cruel irony with this channel. So, passing a burnt out city, they then approach the shore as they have stopped for gas. Sam says she's got to drop the kids off at the pool as they see that they are halfway through the infected zone. Hearing a creature beginning to wail, yeah, it's time to go. Leon then asks what that was. Brother, it's aliens. What do you think it was? The escort then gets loaded as they decide now is a good time to leave. Little pep in your step also might be a good idea. Continuing their boating adventures, Leon tells Sam about Katie and his son. He says they had a great 2 months together, and then 2 years after that, she called and said, hey, you have a youngling. He asked to see him, and she says, you can see him, but you're not his father. Yeah, fat chance. That's a thanks for letting me know that I have an offspring. My lawyer will be reaching out so that I can see them on a regular basis sort of deal. Then again, maybe that's just my personal take on not being a complete tool, but he elects to just kind of go along with that arrangement because I guess he doesn't want to help raise his own offspring. Further proving that this dude is in fact a turbo douche. Got some real character flaws there, buddy. So Leon then asks about Sam's pet, which she says that she has none. Then, just at random, the engine goes out, which not a great thing. Working on it into the evening, they are pretty much stuck there, and then as night falls, they're continuing their work, which if you haven't finished it by then, it seems more like a critical issue that you might not be able to fix with the tools on hand. Hearing something wail, something is in the water as they start freaking out. It might be good to just be quiet. It's so freaking dark that I can't really see what it is, but as they look into the distance, Leon keeps taking pictures as they don't know what it is. They just like, what is it? It's an alien. So as it emerges, it's actually a jet that surfaces, and this just raises more questions like, how did that thing get knocked out of the sky? These creatures do not appear to fly, and we never really see them using anything that suggests they should be able to attack with projectiles. Anyway, so taking pictures, the creature then pulls the jet under, and then they get the motor going as they start boating out of there once more. It is now the next morning, and they gotta be close to the border of the zone by now. Still, broken boats everywhere as others who try to get out of there during the initial hit, and blood is on those boats also, which that has to be a relatively fresh issue because I'm fairly certain the rain would have washed that away a long time ago. So finding a crew on shore, they are locked and loaded, Brides of Christ, and they are done with the boat tour as now they must walk, which Leon is freaked out. He's like, well, why do they have force multiplier? Like, brother, there are monsters everywhere. Of course they're gonna have that. Seeing a cow moo, they then keep walking into the evening. So stopping for the night, they are waiting for another family as well as the border is only about an hour and a half by driving. Leon then asks if they have seen these creatures and they ask how big they are, which they're like, oh, over 100 meters in size. Probably about 150 actually, which 150 meters is 492 feet in terms of an M1 Abrams actually. That's about, okay, well, hold on. Oh, before I continue that joke, no shot they're that tall, by the way. You see these things like, no, they're not almost 500 feet tall. In fact, I looked it up because I thought I was tripping. I am correct. The tallest one is like 290 feet, but that's actually a different movie. But they say the rivers are not safe, but if you don't bother them, then they don't bother you. But American planes make them very angry. Good, get got by human superiority. The creatures have also been exposed to chemical warfare in the past, which made them a little upsetty. And all the trees are infected with something the creatures brought. That's not good. Confirming what he's talking about, they then start flashing a light onto the mushrooms as they light up. Brother, bad idea. You have no idea what you're touching. This is the infection that is spreading. This is why it's the infection zone. They're attempting to contain this specific outbreak, not just the big ones as well. So here's why this is considered, an infection and what it means for humanity. This could create a fairly large problem depending on what this fungus actually does. So for life to continue, there needs to be an exchange of energy. Much like any other fungus known as rots, the fungus typically will break down cellulose from trees, causing the tree to become fragile, dry, and brittle. Now, to confirm this, we can actually see the fungus is in fact existing on this tree. The only purpose to do so is if it's extracting nutrients. So these trees are being actively eaten. So the question now becomes, what sort of trees would they be attacking? See, this is the issue. Plant infections don't necessarily translate into animal infections and vice versa. You cannot give a tree HIV and a tree cannot give you Dutch Elm's disease. Your cells and the byproducts they produce, as well as the cellular markers and how they operate, it's not interchangeable with all life. With that said, I think we all know that you can most definitely contract a fungal infection in general And at every point in our existence, fungal spores are trying to colonize our bodies. So looking at this fungus, we know it attacks trees, but we really don't know if spores are being released, but it must reproduce somehow. Based on this, the question becomes, is this dangerous to humanity? Short term, it's unclear as enough testing does not appear to have been done, but considering the cavalier attitude of wearing gas masks, I would have to say it does not pose too much of a direct threat to humanity. And the reason for this is you have macrophages constantly patrolling your alveolar sacs within your lungs, and when fungal spores drift in, it would absolutely love to colonize this area because it's warm, moist, and dark, but it starts getting absolutely stomped out by your immune system as soon as it enters the area. Given the fungus' ability to utilize Earth-based organisms for nutrition, this may also indicate it is susceptible to Earth-based immune systems, as there appears to be some sort of crossover. From here, this would suggest that whatever this species of fungus hails from appears to have similar structures to fungus here on a micro level and may even have DNA, making it susceptible, which brings up a larger question. Was Earth just seeded a long time ago by life from other places, and this, was as well? I mean, there's no reason to think like other life would not have DNA like us, but there's also no reason to think that it wouldn't. It's just one of those things that we really have to observe first. Now, indirectly and long term, this could be a major problem for humanity. If the quarantine zone is broken and these fungal stocks reproduce by sporing, then there may be no land-based plants that are safe, and there is nothing to say the spores actually couldn't enter the water either. Clearly, the fungus is leaching nutrients away from the host plant to survive, and if that's the case, this could affect all trees, and if humans are susceptible, really, this could affect humans by leaching nutrients from our own cells. And along with this, while the moist jungle environment allows it to grow quickly, given this fungus is from further out in the solar system, it may be that it can withstand cooler temperatures as well, which means its range could actually be beyond what other fungal life can withstand here. Indirectly, this could lead to a collapse of all trees on the planet unless a prevention was found. Roughly 28% of all oxygen comes from trees. Without this, not only would landscapes look like Wyoming, which if you've never been to Wyoming, I've driven through there several times. It basically looks like the moon, but with grass. But this would mean there would be less oxygen in general to breathe. Now, likely our bodies could compensate by creating more red blood cells due to the lower oxygen environment, but it's a problem that could create a cascade of consequences. And this isn't to say that the fungus couldn't be harming humans, we just haven't seen it as of yet. There's also nothing to say that it couldn't prey on microorganisms that produce oxygen in the oceans as well. In the past, Earth has completely had a disruption of its own atmosphere, which led to the extinction of a ton of anaerobes about 2.4 to 2.1 billion years ago when cyanobacteria sprung up creating oxygen, which was a waste product, and this resulted in what is known as the Great Oxygenation Event, and this later led to the formation of the ozone layer and may have actually caused an ice age. So indirectly, this fungus may revert Earth back to what it used to be depending on what the fungus attacks, which we just don't know yet. So checking Sam's hand with his infected hands, very good, nice exposure event there, brother. Sam says, "Oh, my hand hurts." Well, it's probably the fungal spores that just entered your wounds, and then he tells her she needs to move her hand around. "Oh, are you a doctor?" "Yeah, just keep moving that possible hairline fracture around. It's really good for it," says the photographer. She says, "No, I mean thanks." "For what?" He then makes another pass at her, as this time it somewhat works. He then rewraps her hand, as they will be home in the morning. He then kisses her hand. Hey bro, she still has a fiance. And this is just some advice from Papa Roanoke here. Always remember, if they will cheat for you, they will cheat on you. You lose them, how you got them. And that's not just a guideline. That's what happens. That's what will happen. So always get them under, what's what I'm looking for here? Morally correct ways. So going to sleep for the evening, the guard then stays up listening for the creatures as the radio lights up with the guards yelling about how they are on the move. Jets then fly overhead as they load up the trucks and GTFO from the area, or at least attempt to. Guess we aren't waiting on that family anymore. You gotta be quicker than that. The guards then tell them to shut up and be quiet as they can hear the creatures outside. Putting on their gas masks, which I still don't understand, like why would you need it now? You've been exposed in the infected zone. You literally poked a mushroom. They see one of the creatures as it picks up a truck. It then drops it on another guy, as then he gets out firing at the creature, but then he gets, I guess, completely torn apart. The creature then approaches the other truck as Leon shuts off the light and it walks by, completely disinterested, as they just left it alone. But why doesn't everybody just leave them? Why even fire at these things if they're not gonna do anything? Just let it walk by. Anyways, time to steal a truck. So the next morning they emerge from the truck, having slept there through the night. One of the trucks is up in the trees as Leon calls out for anyone in the area as he sees the alien mushrooms releasing spores. So they do produce spores, hence why you would need your gas mask, not just when the creatures are there. Also, we're going to talk about these creatures, but there's a much better and more clear example we'll look at later on. So this fungus also produces a form of bioluminescence, which is interesting because fungus really don't need that necessarily, especially if they're reproducing by spores, but it seems like where they're from, a lot of light is just produced by life rather than relying on the sun. So he finds one guy completely torn apart with his ribs exposed, ouchies, and he steals the camera and gas mask, seeing as that guy won't need it anymore, and then heads back to the truck. Approaching said truck, there's a bunch of people who are donezo in the area, and I'm assuming this was the family that they were supposed to meet earlier, as then he covers them up, as the whole family was taken out during the attack. Heading out on their walk, they seem to know where they are going, not really sure how, and heading through many different areas. I'm assuming they are heading up to the ridge as Sam says, wait, she has to pee, which this girl has been using the bathroom every few minutes, it looks like. So as they stop and see a Mexican pyramid, I'm not totally sure which one this is. I looked up a bunch, and they are either in the Yucatan or they should be, like, North Mexico is a relatively arid region. I'm not really sure, but looking out, they see the border wall, and brother, that thing is huge. Like, how would you get in there? They built this in 6 years? This means tomorrow they should be back to their perfect lives. So they sit there practicing laughing for some reason, slipping slowly into madness as night falls. Wow, what a fantastic bonding moment. So they decide to stay there, as then it's now the next morning. Approaching the border wall, there's a huge hole right in the middle that has been abandoned by the US. In the distance, they can see the jets making runs on creatures as the whole area is basically a ghost town, which I'm not really sure how it was all jungly, like where they were, but then like right on the other side, it's now air. This doesn't make any sense. So then they put on their gas masks and then spot dead creatures on the houses. Again, why wear them now? You have already been exposed several times over. Calling out to anyone, yeah, I think they're probably all gone. The place looks like it was evacuated. So hearing a noise though, they then go around the corner and spot a random person pushing a cart. Sam then calls out to them as they stop and look at the duo. She doesn't answer as this person then starts saying quack and walks off. Yeah, you're definitely in the US now. So heading towards the evacuation point as Leon then calls a woman saying they are stuck there in the evacuation zone, but nobody else is with them. Thinking they are safe now, they chill out in the gas station as she tells Leon he looks good behind a register. He then asks her what she's going to do, and she asks him, well, what are you gonna do? I don't know. What's my favorite thing about you? Ugh, God, I hate this. So then he heads outside to call his son, telling him happy birthday, as Sam then calls back to someone saying it's her. Leon's son says, hey, I miss you, Dad, which bums him out. You could just go and see your son, you know, instead of having, I don't know, a sad Bart Simpson breakdown in the corner. Loser. So anyways, Sam says she's fine and that she knows. She says she's tired as everyone is having an emotional breakdown right now, and they both say that they will be home in a few days as Leon then walks off and Sam tells her fiance, I'm guessing, that she misses him too and that she loves him. Not enough love, it would seem, in a few moments. So Leon then falls over outside, laying there like a total weirdo as a thunderstorm approaches. Horrifically, something appears in the sky. Sam notices it first as it enters the actual building, filling around with its tendrils. Leon then gets up, spotting the creature as clearly it is searching around for anything or anyone in there, but just not seeing Leon outside. It then attaches to, I guess, the TV, feeling the electrical energy coming off of it. As then she turns off the TV, it loses interest and just kind of moves on. Another one then approaches as the two communicate. Watching them, I'm not really sure how this is tear-inducing. Like, they're just kind of like, oh, let me feel your weird squid face and light up a couple of times. And of course, you know, Leon here, you know what? He doesn't even get the moniker Leon. Andrew here, he's a photographer, so he's feeling a certain way about it. This would be a great picture, brother. You could have sold this, but instead you had to sit there and cry. So obviously these creatures are communicating by not only bioluminescence, but it seems like they're attracted to electrical signals, which, given the salty oceans, I guess you could say, from where they're from, which is like super salinity almost, which we'll talk about where they're from in a moment. That would make sense because, you know, it would allow for the electricity, instead of communicating by chemical signatures, they're probably communicating by electrical signatures. So since we've seen them clearly at the very end, let's discuss how they also look. First, yes, a total waste of why didn't they add these creatures in earlier, but I'm thinking the second movie probably has them a little more clearly. But getting a good look at them, we can see several things. First, starting with the tendrils, these creatures have long branching arms that are actually quite similar to the octopus on Earth, or octopi, although somebody's going to refute that. We can likely surmise then at the top of each arm, potentially there is a nerve cluster that controls each one, which is why octopus kind of have 9 brains. The one central in their head, and then basically one little mini brain per arm. So they appear to have several arms used for locomotion, and then other more thin arms used for grasping and exploring buildings. These can be used offensively as well in order to deal with aggressors, as in picking up humans and boats and tanks and pretty much anything else. A bioluminescence exists, which much like the fungal stalk seen earlier, this would indicate that this species actually very likely evolved in the complete dark. Now the question is, are they aquatic or are they terrestrial? Given that they appear to be accomplished in both, they would need liquid water in order to evolve, but they would also need dry land in order to develop legs. Because of their size, ability to walk on dry land on Earth, and also navigate waters, this brings into question where are they actually from. So here's the issue. If they were, say, from Europa, which is known to have liquid water under its icy crust, which is created by thermal heat from its core, this would satisfy a few of the parameters such as evolving in the dark, necessitating the need for bioluminescence so that you can communicate. It would also allow them to exhibit the aquatic behavior that we have seen. However, what it does not satisfy is the gravity constraints on how they can walk on Earth, given Europa is only 90% the size of the moon, or even where dry land would even be on Europa. So I believe it has to happen as this. Europa, or possibly even Callisto, although it is highlighted that they are from Europa. Actually, in the lore, I found this later. So turns out my theory that they're from Europa was actually correct. This actually allowed the species to evolve in complete darkness, but they also could venture out above the ice on Europa, which possibly allowed them to walk and develop legs. There is another option, we'll get there in a second. So you should take this with a grain of salt, because walking on Europa would be considerably easier than walking on the comparatively high gravity world like Earth. Given their size, this allowed them to grow due to the concepts associated with deep sea gigantism, such as increased body size to maintain heat and an efficient metabolism, as well as isolation increasing size. Given the fungal stalks grow on the plants as well, this could also possibly hint that under the surface of Europa, there could be dry land due to an overhead melting of ice, leaving a dome of sorts over the surface of land. This would allow for the fungal stalks to grow and these creatures to actually go up on what would be considered dry land, and this in turn would affect their evolutionary pathways. Very likely these creatures are incredibly smart. Given how octopus on Earth are intelligent creatures, there is no doubt that they exhibit the same propensity, not even being aggressive to humans, but attacking the things that are attacking them, which are the jets. Their dark skin also denotes possibly being an ambush predator of sorts, hiding in the darkness like the horrific creature known as the anglerfish, luring other species in through their bioluminescence and then eating them. Clearly, given the wounds that we have seen on that one guy, they may have jaws of sorts or even a beak-like protrusion like the octopus on Earth. Overall though, they are still just animals, tough animals, maybe a little more intelligent, but still animals. So now these things are on American soil, time to introduce them to American freedom. As the crickets return, the army who's singing the same Valkyrie song from the beginning, when they first got, just arrives. So either these are the two that they were talking about at the beginning of the movie and their fate is actually sealed as they are about to be attacked by the ones they just saw, or something else is happening here. I think they're about to get got and they do get taken out in the end. That's just my conspiracy theory. Maybe the second movie will shed some light on it. I don't know. So Leon and Sam then make out, which again, she's got a fiance, as in the soldiers grab them and bring them out of the area, and thus concludes monsters. Turns out the monsters were Sam for betraying the trust of someone she thought she loved, and Leon for barking up that tree the whole time and knowing she had a fiance, joy abound. Or maybe the monsters are actually Amazon Prime charging you for subscriptions that you didn't sign up for, which seems highly illegal. That's right. I noticed that crap yesterday. This is just a PSA at the end of this video. Go check your subscriptions from Amazon Prime. I was signed up for like $50 worth of subscriptions. I had no idea. They just sign you up for that crap. Absolutely ludicrous. But anyhow, I see there is another movie called Monsters Dark Continent, which seems related, and if you guys want me to cover that in the future, let me know down in the comments. But with that said, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, then leaving a like would be great of you as it helps the video, and subscribing is baller, as in 2025, I am trying to get to 1.25 million subs. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, Roanoke Tales, and games links in the description. But speaking of patrons, I'd like to thank mine real quick. First, I'd like to thank our astronauts, Army and Tristan Pesic. Thank you guys for the awesome support. Next, I'd like to thank our astrophysicist, Death Dancer, and Feather. Thank you guys as well. And I would like to thank our scientists, Dakota 23, Invictus Echo, Metric System, Official Texan, and Vierix Hellstrom. I do appreciate y'all's support. And the rest of my patrons, you guys are awesome. You keep everything running smoothly, so thank you. But all right, that's gonna do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.